Welcome to Ethics Shorts. Whether you're a seasoned professional, a student embarking on your counseling journey, or simply curious about the ethical dimensions of mental health, this podcast is for you. Our hosts will unravel ethical quandaries, explore real-life scenarios, and discover the gray areas that shape our profession. This podcast is sponsored by the Arkansas Counseling Association. The views expressed in the content belong to the content creators and not the organization, its affiliates, or employees. Let's talk about ethics.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Jones, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Ethics Shorts. And this is my friend.
Hi, I'm Helen Jennings Hood. I am part of the Arkansas Counseling Association Ethics Committee.
And we're just excited to be here for another episode of the Ethics Shorts. And today we have a really interesting topic that we want to kind of talk about for a few minutes. We're going to be talking about the hierarchy of responsibility when it comes to ethics. And so we're going to break that down in a little bit here so we can kind of understand what we're talking about. But when you go to the ACA Code of Ethics, specifically A1A, it talks about primary responsibility. And I'll just read it really quick. It's a short one. It says the primary responsibility of counselors is to respect the dignity and promote the welfare of clients. And so, as counselors, this is what we follow, this is what we listen to, and this is kind of the message we receive throughout all of our counseling training is that, our primary responsibility is to make sure our clients are being taken care of and that we respect dignity, in which I think both of us 100% agree that this is a very good code to look at. But today we want to kind of expand it a little bit and kind of talk about how when we think about self-care of clinicians, that A1A sometimes doesn't really match well with that when we're thinking about what is actually best for the client. There's maybe some other steps to kind of look into. So Helen and I have been kind of talking about that. And so, Helen, if you want to kind of kick it off and we'll kind of go from there and just kind of go back and forth. But when we talk about hierarchy of responsibility, what are we talking about there?
So I think there's a lot of confusion about where we're ethically obligated to be responsible. And I think there is a lot of clarity in this A1A that our primary responsibility is to our clients. But I think that is too narrow in that there are other responsibilities that we do have ethically that we have to make sure that we're covering. We have a responsibility, first of all, to self, to take care of ourselves, to make sure that we are working to the best of our abilities for our clients. We can't really work with people and heal them and work with their mental health if our mental health is not doing okay. And I think, too, that, in certain situations, we have a lot of responsibility to community as well. And there are different codes that address these things. But I think, kind of thinking about it like a hierarchy of what needs to be happening ethically so that we can be our best clinical selves and be helping and supportive of everyone as best we can and be able to kind of use a decision-making model to be able to make decisions of where we are in that hierarchy at different points in time with different issues that may come up.
And so as we were talking about this earlier, we kind of broke it down in kind of like three different steps where as we're thinking about this hierarchy, that the first hierarchy, which kind of goes against what A1A is that the first responsibility we have in counseling is to ourselves. And I think that's important, especially when we're thinking about, self-care and specifically, we talk about self-care so much in counseling, but the reality of it is if the client's needs are the first thing we're considering, then we're really not practicing self-care, at least. That's kind of the way I look at it. So to me, that I agree with you. The clinician being that primary source of making sure that I'm at a place where I need to be before I start working with clients, to me, that's an ethical approach to kind of take there.
Yeah, and I think it kind of harkens back to what we learned in our graduate programs of the professional as a person. We're our professional selves, of course, with our clients, but we're also a person before we are a professional anything. So to be, to tap into both of those, we have to be taking care of ourselves so that we can do our best practice. And I think that also follows along with some confusion that we may have sometimes with our jobs as well. we have to take care of ourselves first before we can even consider the ethical obligation to our work.
And so us just I know for me that is like I know there's a hard balance to do that where we're stepping back and saying, okay, where are my blind spots? Where are the things that I need to make sure I'm working on? But it's necessary work because like I can't really be effective anywhere else if I haven't really taken a look at myself and say what needs to be improved, where are my growth areas, things of that nature. So yeah, I like how that to me our our mindset needs to be kind of taken care of in the right place first before I'm able to even go anyplace else with that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if we think about it too, that keeping in mind always that we're in a helping and healing profession, a care profession, and we will tend to overextend ourselves, I think, naturally in trying to help and support other people and heal other people. And so making sure that our priorities are ethically aligned in that we're caring for ourselves, that we're continuing to educate ourselves and take care of ourselves and strengthen our knowledge so that we can be our best practical selves, practicing selves. We can't do a whole lot for anybody else if we're not taking care of ourselves.
So as we're creating this hierarchy, we're saying self is the highest part. Well, then the second part of the hierarchy, I guess, the natural transition will be to client. So why put the client second, I guess, in our hierarchy?
Because I think that you have to, at times, choose where to pour your energy. And I think if we are looking at it as the clinician, as the top priority of the ethical hierarchy, we're going to be more likely to be able to heal and support our clients when they need us the most. And if we're not doing that, then we're not going to be able to do anything. And I think, too, kind of looking at it as the clinician first ethically in order to practice in the best way possible, in the most ethical way possible. And the client individual or the client family, the client couple second. But I think too that there are times like with duty to warn that has to shift a little bit and we have to look at community as well. So I would say that client and community may often fall on the same level of that second tier.
Gotcha. So depending on where the most need is, that's where the most attention probably needs to be shifted then. Yeah.
Well, I think, if we think about duty to warn, I think we most often think about making sure that our client is safe. But there are times working with some clients when we have to make sure that others are safe from the client, which also benefits the client. And so I think those two things can both be together on that second tier.
Gotcha. Can you ever see a situation where where you see it where the community has to come before the client, or where it just has to be a thing where those things may not be able to be matched together? Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. Thinking about clients who may be struggling with psychosis and maybe aggressive or violent, homicidal clients who may be, targeting particular persons. We all know about the Tarasoff case and duty to warn. And so I think, there are times where the client may not want the higher level of care or may not be in a place to understand that they need a higher level of care. And that's when the clinician has to kind of consult this hierarchy and make sure that the client is getting the services they need and the community gets the protection that they need.
And to me, I think it's interesting that when you think about just in general ethical decision making models, which we'll talk about that in a whole another ethics short. Sometimes this whole process really isn't talked about. That this hierarchy isn't talked about because, like I said, we do continue to float back towards A1A, and once again, I'm not against it. It's just that becomes more of the higher priority when that may not be the best approach to take sometimes. And so to me, it's nice to be able to kind of come back into some of these ethics that we've been taught before and say, okay, I get the purpose behind them, I get the meaning behind what they're saying, but if we kind of take a more macro look at everything, there may be some different approaches we can take that's going to be more effective for our clients if we do it in the right order. Yeah.
Well, I think, that's the benefit of maybe thinking of it more like a hierarchy, but also being familiar with the ethical decision-making model. And two, being familiar with the code of ethics overall. I know that we've had these code of ethics since 2014, but it still encompasses, we have an ethics for this primary responsibility. We have one for clinician wellness and well-being and taking care of ourselves and not becoming incapacitated. But there's also a section about, making sure that your workplace is an ethical workplace in regard to your client. So, if we look at these as a whole, and take these all together, we can see that hierarchy, what it looks like as far as the client, the clinician, and the mental health facility or agency or whatever that may look like. But I think that takes familiarity with the code of ethics to be able to kind of like overview and kind of condense it into that hierarchy. And so I think the reason we wanted to talk about this, and so we're so interested in it, is that, we've kind of done that work, and it's, we can tell people about it, and it's an easier way to look at things, and it helps you kind of keep track of where your ethics are in relationship to your responsibility and where your energy needs to go.
Now, I really appreciate you saying that because I think, we both taught ethics before and been through ethics, so many ethics trainings, not even funny. But I think the way we end up teaching ethics sometimes it is more like, okay, section A talks about this, so let's focus on section A, and then section H talks about this, and so let's focus on. And so even though we're in some parts of our training, we're trying to look at things holistically, but when it comes to our clients, we don't really do that with our code of ethics. And so, like you said, there really is like a hierarchy built in there, and even though they don't come out specifically and say, okay, client, self, this, or whatever the case may be, they're still helping us to see there is a bigger structure that we need to be looking at. So yeah, look at what the code says, follow what the code says, but realize there's built-in structures that helps you to also figure out how you want to maneuver what this code looks like. Because it's, no two people are going to agree exactly what the code says, but if you go with that overall, okay, what's the overall hope of if they're trying to get it across here? That helps you to make those decisions a little bit easier, I feel like.
Hmm. I think that, we teach ethics, kind of section by section and talk about different pieces and parts of it as an easier way to absorb it in, the classroom. But I think in practice, in clinical practice, when you're utilizing your code of ethics as a clinician, live and in front of a client, I think you have to have those kind of broad overviews of, okay, there are sections, this one about this one about this, and this one about this, and I'm going to take these pieces because, our multicultural ethics are sprinkled throughout each section instead of being all in one place. And I feel like this is the same way.
So for all of our fellow ethics nerds out there, we just want to say, let's make sure as we're looking at the code, let's not just look at it for content, but also look at it for meaning too. And I guess as we understand it a lot better and we understand the heart which some of it is made, it becomes a lot more apparent that there's more to the code than just what's written there. Like in research, we're taught to look for themes. There's themes there that we want to make sure that we are very well aware of, because once we understand those themes, when I find myself in an ethical situation where I need to make a decision, it becomes so much easier because I'm not having to be so focused. Okay, I know the code says this, but what else is the code? What is the essence of the code also telling me too? And so I think if we approach ethics from that perspective, I think we will have a lot more people hopefully in trouble, because we're not trying to find a way of saying, okay, this applies to me, this doesn't apply to me, or is there a loophole? But it's more of, okay, how do I work myself into what this image of what it looks like to be a counselor from an ethical perspective? And there's some leeway there, but understanding why we're doing what we're doing, I think helps out quite a bit.
Absolutely. I think we often get frustrated with the kind of gray areas of our ethical code, but I think that we need that flexibility in order to account for a lot of different situations. And I think that's also why, ACA in particular gives us this ethical decision-making model that we're going to talk more about in another video. But I think that those two things together, and if we're looking at it that way, that makes it a lot easier to kind of determine where we need to be.
Well, I appreciate you as usual for your insights and looking forward to continuing doing these videos together. Just a reminder to everybody, if you are enjoying these videos and things like that, make sure you're following us and following it in this videos that we're doing. Also, if there's questions you have or ethical topics you say, hey, I would love for y'all to talk about that, please just hit the email address below and send something in there, and we will do our best to get to it. So appreciate everybody and hope everybody has a great